Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Pawa Radio.
Good evening, karibuni sana to all the criminals and traitors in our midst. I don't think I've moved on from that, Welcome, this is Sheria Dive right here on Power Radio. And today, we're talking about Ruto's cabinet decisions. We're going to be looking at some of that. What exactly does the Constitution expect with regards to those who are in cabinet? Is there actually a legal issue in reappointing people that were already dismissed from the cabinet? That's what we're going to be looking at today. But I just want to take this moment to welcome you back to the show. Are you out there? You're safe, you're well? Why don't you give us a shout out on at Power Radio and at James K. WaNjeri on the socials? And of course, if you're watching these on YouTube, you can just give us a shout out on the chat. I think we have a live chat ongoing. Yeah. Cool. Now, today, I hope you don't have the power losses we were dealing with last week. KPLC was really sabotaging us, but here we are. Also, I'm just going to be updating you on what's been happening this week in Kenya, even as we talk maandamano. What has the government been doing? What has happened in the courts? Kenya is in an interesting season and time. And there's just so much happening. But the purpose of this show is to educate you on the law, and so that you and I can have a discussion about the future of this country. So let's get some music, and then when we come back, we first do a rewind. We try and see what exactly happened this week. Let's go.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
We all need love. We all need love, especially all the people out there who've... I think we've had about 52 people actually lose their lives as a result of police brutality. Many of them died by gunshot wounds, and others, it was what we call blunt force trauma, okay? So this means you've been hit. I think a lot of people with blunt force trauma had been hit on the head. Of course, we had guys who had been shot. And it's really a sad time to be a Kenyan. I think this season has been quite interesting because on one hand, you're very proud of the fact that Kenyans have actually gotten to the point where we care about social issues and we're willing to come out and speak about it. And you look at everyone who came out for the protest. It was every person of all ages. Guys came out, guys stepped up, and they made the noise that needed to be made, and we got some results. Of course, the president withdrawing that finance bill. Then after that, he decides to fire his entire cabinet except Madividi and Gachagua. Of course, the reason for Gachagua remaining is under Kenya's 2010 constitution. Now, before the constitution of 2010, we had a president called Moi who would appoint people and fire them at will, okay? So I think I remember there's a time Kenya actually didn't have a vice president for a very long time because he'd fired the VP. I think it was Saitoti. He fired him and then he decided, wacha nikaivu hata mimi. And you can imagine being in a country where there's no vice president. What happens if the president was to die? But I think Moi had a God complex. He never thought he could die. Anyway, so in 2010 constitution, we decided as a country that the deputy president will also be elected together with the president, okay? And he can only be removed by way of impeachment or death. So Gachagua, of course, remains. Then Madividi remains. He is a prime cabinet secretary. And that's actually it's an illegal position. It does not exist, There is no provision for it in the constitution. But today we want to talk about the cabinet. That will be the focus of our discussion today. And just looking at the constitution. What does the constitution actually provide about who should be in the cabinet? How should the president go about appointing people to the cabinet? What are the requirements for cabinet ministers? And then we're also going to be looking at some of these names. Are they individuals who, when you look at the constitution, are they individuals who should be elected into those positions of authority? That's what we're going to be looking at. But of course, this past week, the National Police decided that we are going to ban protests. You cannot protest in the city of Nairobi. That's what they said. And of course, Katiba Institute, my pal Joshua Malidzo filed a petition at the High Court, and the High Court has actually suspended that directive that no demonstrations are allowed. And you can see we have a serious problem in this country. And sometimes I get very angry, guys, because how do you decide that you can just wake up and suspend constitutional rights? Like, are these guys not being advised? Is it that we don't have people being advised, or are people just doing what they want to do? You can't wake up and decide we have suspended the constitution. You cannot have the right to go and demonstrate. It's actually a right protected under Article 37 of the Constitution. So, of course, the High Court has set that aside. And then the National Police then issue another letter. And in the letter, they say, we actually did not ban people from going to the streets or from protesting, okay? What we have said is that if you want to do it, you must come and give us the name. Who is the leader of that? Who is the leader of that protest? What is their number and where do they live? Do you see what's happening? So what the government wants is to know, kama ni umepanga hiyo maandamano, they can easily come and target you and pick you up. Well, that requirement does not actually exist in the law. That is a requirement that has been made by the Police of Kenya. And we're going to challenge all these things, and we'll be looking out for that decision by the High Court once the hearing happens and the petition is finally determined, because I do not think that the police should be able to ask for such information, because you're exercising your right. Their work is to actually ensure that protesters are protected. Of course, early this morning, we received news reports that some goons on motorbikes had descended upon Sema Ukweli offices. Sema Ukweli, of course, is associated with Boniface Mwangi. Is that government retaliation? Who paid these guys? Who brought them out? Of course, there was no police presence. So that even gives you more questions than answers. Anyway, guys, this is our country. I think one of the things I've enjoyed is seeing how Kenyans have actually been very focused about the things we want. And this is just, my appeal to the government. And I mean, anyone who's listening to this, and you're probably part of that government, what people are asking for is not impossible. As a matter of fact, what people are asking for exists already in the Constitution. So it's just a question of, do you have enough goodwill to effect that Constitution? And perhaps I always think part of the challenge maybe we have is, if you recall in 2010, when you were going for the, when you were voting for the Constitution, the current president right now, William Ruto, actually led the no wing together with the church. It was William Ruto and the church. Their relationship has been a very long and fruitful relationship. They have always ganged up to just do to be on the wrong side of history. So Ruto leads the no campaign against the constitution that we have today. And it's the same constitution that we're asking him to uphold. Can that actually be done? He must do it. Because remember, part of the oath, when he's taking oath as president, he says that he will uphold that constitution. So it's not a question of whether he wants to or not. All right? No one wants to get hurt. No one wants to get maimed. No one wants to get killed. We want to live in this place. We don't want to go and be in butchers in Saudi Arabia. This is Kenya. This is the Garden of Eden. And we're here. We want to enjoy ourselves and to have fun. Okay? Anyway, we're going to be looking at some of those names that have been proposed and some of the challenges. Kenya is getting its first Attorney General, which is a female Attorney General, which is a big deal. But there's some question marks about her qualification to actually step into that position. And you're going to be just looking at what the Constitution had in mind, especially on who becomes the Attorney General. So we're going to kick off with that. Rebecca Miano is Ruto's nominee for the Attorney General. She was also in the previous cabinet that was dismissed.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
Niko on, toa form manze. And form today is talking about President Ruto's cabinet choices. Cabinet choices by the president. Now, one of the things I strongly believe is there's a quote I had once, and I've always thought it's an amazing quote, and that is that those who fail to learn from their history are bound to repeat the mistakes of their past. Now, when you look at the constitution-making process in Kenya, right, one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, why is it that we have certain clauses within that constitution? Okay? Today, I hope I can just give a just a very small explainer on why we find that there are certain things in the Constitution. Of course, everyone knows number one, and this has been amazing just seeing this on the streets. Article 1 of the Constitution says all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this Constitution. That is a very serious statement. And that statement simply says that if you do anything or if you govern this country in a way that is not in accordance with this Constitution, then you have violated the Constitution. And when you violate the Constitution, you cannot then be trusted to uphold it. Sawa sawa. Now, Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya provides the national values and the principles of governance. So what we are saying here is that as a country, these are the values that we have, all right? But number two, these are the principles that should guide us in matters to do with governance. And of course, governance means that there are people you've given power or you've given authority, all right? And you've told them, you've given them it's actually a responsibility. You've given them a responsibility to hold power and authority on behalf of Kenyans. And those people have to be bound by certain principles, okay? And the Constitution at Article 10 is very clear. Those values and principles, they bind all state organs, all state officers, all public officers, and all persons whenever any of them, number one, applies or interprets the Constitution, two, enacts, applies, or interprets any law, or three, makes or implements public policy decisions. So now when you move from that, under Article 10.2, the national values and principles of governance include, okay, this is not an exhaustive list, but they will include, number one, patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy, and participation of the people. Then, human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, non-discrimination and protection of the marginalized, good governance, integrity, transparency and accountability, and sustainable development. All right? Which means that even, for instance, when the president is now having to appoint the cabinet, the people he appoints have to be people who can actually meet that threshold. That threshold that has been set in the law, they can meet it. If they cannot meet it, then it means that that appointment has been made in contravention of the Constitution of Kenya. Sawa sawa? So far, so good. Now, about, I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago, the president dissolved his cabinet. And when you look at the president's speech, part of what he says is there were questions of accountability, there are questions of transparency, people had lost confidence in his cabinet, and therefore he was dissolving that cabinet. Now, one of the questions that has come up is, can the president actually fire these guys and then bring them back in the same government? Now, I'd like to read you, I came across a tweet by Peter Wanyama. Of course, Peter Wanyama is an advocate of the High Court, and he's a guy who actually vied to be the LSK chairperson the other day, okay? So this is what Peter Wanyama says. There's also a legal minefield that the president is working on. The 2010 Constitution provides elaborate and fundamental principles of governance that bind him. Having publicly declared that there are suitability, organizational, and governance problems with CSs in his cabinet, and he proceeded to fire the CSs, he cannot conceivably renominate them as CSs. There are constitutional clauses on trust in public offices, leadership, governance, and core values that will be tested in a petition of the High Court. And according to him, he says that if this question is to land before a judge who has strong jurisprudence, okay, they can issue conservatory orders saying the decision to renominate the tainted CSs back to the cabinet, they stay that decision. They say, no, you cannot do that. Now, for sure, a case will be filed on this matter, on this matter of the CSs, okay? a case will clearly be filed in court. And the court will now actually help us understand, can the president actually go ahead and do what he has done? Now, let's go to the function of the president. Under Article 132 of the Constitution, Article 132.2, the president shall nominate and with the approval of the National Assembly appoint and may dismiss, number one, cabinet secretaries in accordance with Article 152. Number two, the Attorney General in accordance with Article 156. The Secretary to the Cabinet in accordance with Article 154. Principal Secretaries in accordance with Article 155. We're just gonna keep our attention on that cabinet bit and not necessarily go to the rest. And now, for you to be appointed to the cabinet, it means this is a presidential decision. I think one of the questions I saw is, why can't people apply? I mean, it is possible. It's possible for people to apply, and it could be done. But remember, the people that the president puts in his cabinet, these are the people he has decided, I have confidence in these people. These are the people I want with me, and I believe that they can help me to actually get my mandate. You know, these are the campaign promises I made to people, and these guys can help me do that. Now, under Article 152, the cabinet consists of the president, the deputy president, the attorney general, and not fewer than 14 and not more than 22 cabinet secretaries. The attorney general is actually not a cabinet secretary. It's not a CS. That's a separate office. Now, the person who's been nominated as the attorney general is Rebecca Miano. And I think a lot of people are shocked that, what? You mean Rebecca Miano is a lawyer? Yes, Rebecca Miano was actually admitted to the bar in 1991. Okay? However, questions have arisen about her suitability. While she is an advocate of the High Court, and that means that on that basis, then she can be an attorney general because she's a lawyer.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
Kenya's law is also very clear on who can be an attorney general. What actually is the requirement for attorney general? If you go to Article 156, the attorney general is a person. If let's look at Article 156.3. The qualifications for appointment as attorney general are the same as for appointment to the office of Chief Justice. Okay? It means that the person you actually appoint as your attorney general has to meet the requirements of the Chief Justice. Like if we were to appoint a Chief Justice, those requirements that we'd put for a Chief Justice are the requirements that also the Attorney General nominee should have. So it's not simply a question of you're a wakili and so here is a job. Now, part of the challenge for Rebecca Miano is, while she is an advocate, she's not been in active legal practice because she did a bit of legal practice and then she went corporate. She joined Kengen. She was a company secretary. She was a legal officer there. So in terms of the experience of going to court, filing cases, as a matter of fact, she has not practiced law. And by practice, I mean she's not filed any matters before court. I don't even think she's written she's done any academic writing on the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So this is someone who, yes, you are an advocate, but in terms of your qualification, and the question you should actually ask is, would you appoint Rebecca Miano as a Chief Justice of Kenya?
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
To be the Chief Justice of Kenya, you first have to have been an advocate for at least 15 years. All right? Then, you also must have a distinguished career, whether in academia, whether in practice. Those are the requirements. Is this a person who meets that qualification? In all honesty, I actually do not think so. I do not think that she meets that qualification. let's go to msiseme ni kuingilia miano. Let's look at Article 166, 3. The Chief Justice and other judges of the Supreme Court shall be appointed from among persons who have, number 1, at least 15 years experience as a Superior Court judge, or at least 15 years experience as a distinguished academic, judicial officer, legal practitioner, or such experience in other relevant legal field. So guys, let's talk what actually does distinguished mean. I have I have a dictionary here. Okay? Distinguished means very successful, authoritative, and commanding great respect. Do you think that defines the Attorney General nominee? Is she an authority in legal matters? Does she command great respect?
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
Tujiangalie manze. Tujiangalie. Because, can you believe it? Kithure Kindiki is back to the Ministry of Interior and National Administration. This is the same guy who was in office when 50 people were killed by police officers. Now, police are allowed to use their firearms. I mean, they're carrying them, right? But they're allowed to use them in very, very specific circumstances. One of those circumstances is that they'll only use it when they are in fear of their life, okay? Let's say a police officer has been attacked and it has to be the last thing that they do. Actually, last year in 2022, I believe, that's 2 years ago, right? In 2022, the High Court invalidated some sections of the National Police Service Act. Justice Anthony Mrima invalidated paragraphs 1C, D, and E of Part B of the 6th schedule of the National Police Service Act. And these laws were actually giving police officers sweeping powers on the lethal use of firearms beyond protection of their own lives and others. Now, for instance, that 1C said that a police officer is allowed to use a gun in protection of life and property through justifiable use of force. And the second one was preventing a person charged with a felony from escaping lawful custody. Okay? Now, 1E spoke of preventing a person who attempts to rescue or rescues a person charged with felony from lawful custody. This act had been passed in 2011. So what was the challenge here? The police should never have to use their firearms when protecting property. Because remember, once that bullet is discharged, it means whoever it hits will probably lose their life. That guy is back to the cabinet. Kithure Kindiki is back to the cabinet, to the same position that he had been forced to vacate by the president when they were being dismissed from serving Kenyans. It almost feels like a promotion. And you know, the interesting thing is, for all these people who've actually died, the government has not visited any of them. The government said they're going to pay their bills at Kenyatta National Hospital. Those who are at Kenyatta National Hospital are complaining about the quality of care that they're receiving. I think I saw online, one of them was saying that he got a wound and they were not addressing it, and they might actually have to amputate his leg. So there's actually, it looks like there's no willingness from the government to actually take proper responsibility. And one of the funny things is, we were in court last week. No, actually this past week, I believe it was on Wednesday. Now, the police had arrested some protesters, about 109 of them, and had brought them to court. And they were charged with being drunk and disorderly. Yeah, believe it or not. Now, almost all of them said that they had been beaten by police and they had different injuries. But they also lost their property, because what the police would do, once they arrest you, they would take your phone and smash it on the ground. Okay? Now, the magistrate tells them, if you are injured, go back to that police station and report that you are injured or the police broke your phone. Then the OCS will come here and give me a report as to what happened. And I think one of the people actually asked the magistrate, you want me to go back to the same place where I was brutalized and to report to them that they have brutalized me? How do I even know that I'll go there and I'll come back? But the magistrate said, my power is limited. There's only so much I can do. Anyway, Kithure Kindiki is back after overseeing a campaign that violated the constitution, overseeing the death of over 50 Kenyans. I think over 200 have been injured. Countless property has been destroyed and lost. But yes, that's our president for you.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
Of course, the other person who's been appointed, this is a new person, Deborah Mulongo Barasa. She's actually a doctor. And with her now, the problem was that she has not practiced medicine in Kenya for a while. So she had been struck off the roll of doctors. Her license had been suspended. And I'm told that immediately she was appointed by the president, she paid about 80,000 shillings in license fees and penalties so that she can now be returned to, she can be an active doctor. She can be put back on the list as an active doctor. Where does the president get these people from? Anyway, for Deborah Mulongo Barasa, she's actually a medical doctor. And she's worked with some international bodies within the United Nations. And so it will be interesting to see how that goes.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
In the Ministry of Defense, our man Aden Duale is back. Okay? Aden Duale is back at the Ministry of Defense. Remember, we had earlier asked whether it's actually possible for you can you be fired and then you're brought back to the same job? It's a constitutional question. And yesterday, before the president made the announcement, there was already a bash for him. This country is very interesting. There was a bash for Duale in a hotel, and they had actually put up a very big banner saying, Simba is back. I think they call him Simba. Are there lions in Northeastern? Anyway, guys, that's just with a light touch. But they had already started the bash even before the president made the announcement. Can you imagine this? So anyway, Aden Duale is back. And as we talk about Aden Duale, we'll also be looking at, are there any questions about his integrity, even as we bring him back into these positions?
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
Now, one of the guys who's been brought back to the cabinet is Davis Chuchu. This guy is like Ruto's guy, yani. Now, you'll remember that Uhuru Kenyatta actually fired Davis Chuchu from the cabinet in the previous government. And, of course, Ruto brought him back. Now, Chuchu's time in government has not been very, very rosy or very clean, okay? Now, sometime late last year, actually, Raila Odinga actually pushed for the resignation of Davis Chirchir and Njuguna Ndung'u. If you'll remember, there was a 17 billion diesel scandal that had happened. And according to Raila, what Raila said was that Treasury withdrew 17 billion shillings from the consolidated fund illegally, okay? So this is what Raila says. Raila says they stole money from the consolidated fund in addition to spend monies up way above what Parliament approved. They must not only resign, they must also be prosecuted. Now, Raila was saying that the evidence he had was that there are documents that had been tabled by Senator Okiya Omtata, which showed that 42 million shillings had been withdrawn from the consolidated fund without the authority of Parliament. All right. Now, if you want to remember this story properly, there was a lady called Njeri. Do you remember that Njeri? There's a ship somewhere in Mombasa, huko, and it has diesel and it's in billions. And when the lady's mom was brought to TV, she's like, I didn't even know my daughter has so much money. She's just discovering the rest of us. And according to Okiya Omtata says that he said that whereas what was financed by clauses 19A and B above is not disclosed, there's a direct correlation between the 17 billion, which was unconstitutionally withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund in June 2023 to subsidize unnamed private financial enterprises, and the 17 billion contested oil shipment between Ms. Njeri and the two cabinet secretaries. The two cabinet secretaries were Davis Chirchir and Kipchumba Murkomen. And according to Okiya Omtata, he was saying that the reason why there's a fight is because wamekosana. Okay? Now, the Auditor General, then, I was coming across this today, the National Oil Corporation of Kenya, okay, is under the Ministry of Energy, where Davis Chirchir was the minister before the president dissolved his cabinet. Now, you'll remember that there was a program by the president to distribute LPG gas cylinders, burners and grills. Do you remember? There was something like that when Ruto became president. They said people have to start using gas. All right. Now, who was the minister in charge of this? Davis Chirchir. This is what the Auditor General says. The Auditor General has revealed that NOC, which is the National Oil Corporation of Kenya, cannot account for over 149,000 LPG gas cylinders, the 6 kg ones, burners and grills that had been purchased for low-income households. NOC's records show an inventory of 161,448 cylinders, but only 11,675 were included in their financial statements for the period ended June 2023. So what is being said here? That according to the inventory shows we've bought 161,448 gas cylinders. Okay? But when the financial statements are produced, only 11,675 could be accounted for, which means we have some 149,000 cylinders out there. Ziko huko kwa hewa. Now, can I shock you further? The Ministry of Energy set aside 4.5 billion shillings, and this was meant to purchase some gas cylinders, including 1 kg and 2 kg cylinders for the hustlers, okay? Because we're trying to push LPG growth as a clean energy solution. That's Davis Chirchir for you, ladies and gentlemen. He's back to the cabinet. Yeah? The president, he really chooses them nicely. Wow.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
All right. The other one who's back is Soipan Tuya, who is being given the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. That's where she was before. And really, there's nothing you can say about Soipan Tuya apart from the tree planting thing that happened. I don't think we've seen any other effect that her ministry has had. If you felt the impact of her ministry, why don't you just let us know in the comment section, or you can reach out to us on the socials at Power Radio, at James K. WaNjeri. I do not have much to say about her except the fact that she's been brought back. She was in the previous cabinet before it was dissolved, and now she's back. One of the shocking appointments is of Eric Muga. Eric Muga is being appointed to the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. And this guy is 32 years old. I think that would make him the youngest cabinet secretary for all this bunch. Okay? Eric Muga. And according to his LinkedIn profile, he has a Master of Science degree in Civil Engineering, Water Resources. He got that from the University of Nairobi, where he was between 2018 and 2022. Then he also has a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil and Construction Engineering. He got a first-class honors. This is what he put. I can neither confirm nor deny. And he got this at the University of Nairobi in 2011 to 2016. Part of his experience is that he has been an assistant project engineer for Water, Sanitation and Development Project. And he was an assistant project engineer for Kimawasco and he was a design engineer for Kenya Town Sustainable Water and Supply Sanitation Program. Sawa sawa. Hapo ndio tuko. Hapo ndio tuko. That's all I can say about Eric. Not much actually is known about him, and I think this was one of those appointments by the president just to try and appeal to the young people, the youth. Okay, sawa sawa.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
The next person is one Julius Migosi. Julius Migosi has been appointed to the Ministry of Education. Now, Julius Migosi's case is very interesting because Mr. Julius, and his other name is Ogamba. He's called Julius Migosi Ogamba. Now, you remember that the previous Minister for Education, or CS for Education, was Ezekiel Machogu, okay? Now, in 2022, Machogu vied for the Kisii governor position on a UDA ticket. Guess who his deputy governor was? Julius Migos Ogamba. So the same guy who was going to be his deputy governor, of course, he lost that. He lost it to the Azimio candidate. So they've replaced Machogu with his assistant, basically. The guy who would have done... It's like, I think they called Machogu. They were like, bro, we urudi manze. Asalareiku, urudi manze. Now, just give us... what's the option B? And he said, shika huyu kijana. Take this... well, he's not a young man. He's an old man. But that's the connection for Julius Migosi. So it appears that I think Machogu probably had a deal. Wakasema yo ministry, ya education. That one is mine. It's for me. And so here is Julius Migosi coming in to fill that position.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
The other person who's also made a comeback is one Alice Wahome. Alice Wahome is an advocate of the High Court, but she's been taken to the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development. That is a ministry that she was actually in at the time the cabinet was being dissolved. So just like Linturi and Aden Duale, she's been brought back to the same... no, actually, she was in water. There was a guy who we don't even know who was in lands, and he's just disappeared. Who was that guy? Minister alikuwa chini ya maji bana. But he's gone. So Alice Wahome is now back to the Ministry of Lands, where she... will be dealing with the affordable housing project that has been one of the flagship projects for the Kenya Kwanza government. Then we have one Andrew Karanja. Dr. Andrew Karanja is coming to the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. And duru za kuaminika zinasema Dr. Andrew Karanja is actually the PA to Mithika Linturi. How is the pressure?
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
Welcome back. Now, we're talking about Dr. Andrew Karanja, and I think out of everyone who's been appointed by the president, I think this one is... I'm just looking at his CV. He has a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture from the University of Nairobi. Then he got a Master's of Science in Agriculture Economics from the University of Nairobi, and a PhD in Development Economics and Policy from Wageningen University in the Netherlands. He's from Gatundu North, Kiambu County, and is a CS nominee for agriculture. I don't know about him being a PA. Those stories have appeared online. Hatujui kama ni za ukweli, kwa hivyo tutazitreat tu kama rumors, okay? Now, part of his work experience is that he has been a lead economist at the State Department of Livestock. He was a lead consultant on assessment of public financing for farmer-led irrigation development in the State Department of Livestock. He worked for the World Bank in Nairobi as a senior agricultural economist and task team leader, and he is a research fellow at the Egerton University Tegemeo Institute. Sawa. Now, the other person as well who has been nominated is one Dr. Margaret Ndungu, and she has been brought into the Ministry of Information, Communication, and the Digital Economy. All right? Now you'll remember this position was actually held by Eliud Owalo, and I'm just going to give you some of the profile for Dr. Margaret Nyambura. She was not in that original list of the guys who are in the other government, so she's new. Now, she holds a PhD in information systems from the University of Nairobi, and in her doctorate, she was exploring how new technologies contribute to the quality of life for low-income households in Kenya, integrating insights from both information systems and development studies disciplines. Okay. She has an MBA in management science from the University of Nairobi, and for her undergraduate, she studied a Bachelor of Science in Information Sciences at the Moi University. She did her postdoctoral fellowship at the Shwane University of Technology in Pretoria, South Africa. Now, in terms of her work, she has worked on national and regional projects funded by IDRC, World Bank, NEPAD, International Trade Center, and Vodafone, among others. And she has also consulted for the Kenya ICT Authority. Okay? She seems like she's very... For some of this, you actually get the feeling that the president has gotten people who are properly qualified. I think this nomination and also the nomination of Dr. Andrew Muhia Karanja, it seems like these are guys who are proper experts. And when you look at let's look at that at the Constitution of Kenya. When it comes to questions of the cabinet, you'll remember that one of the requirements in the 2010 Constitution was that people who get into cabinet would not be members of parliament. That was being removed because the purpose of parliament is to provide oversight to the executive. So if you have members of parliament also being in the cabinet, then how are you going to oversight each other? So that was removed. And the idea was that you'd have technocrats, people who are experts in that area, people who actually, for instance, if you're going to get someone in water, it has to be someone who understands, has a proper educational experience, has a proper work experience. And so because of that, they're able to serve the country. And because they are not in parliament as well, then in their work, they're able to focus on the one thing that they're doing. But one of the questions that has actually arisen about President Ruto's cabinet is this. If you look at the numbers, the distribution of the tribal mathematics, it seems to be skewing heavily in favor, for instance, of Central, because let's look at this. What you'd call Mount Kenya, you have Dr. Margaret Ndungu, you have Rebecca Miano, you have Andrew Karanja, you have Alice Wahome, those are 4. And then, and you have Kithure Kindiki, okay? That's 5. And of course, you have Eric Muga, who is, I believe he's from Meru as well. So you have 6 out of 11 going to Mount Kenya. Murima, as a truthful man would call it. Then, what does that mean then in terms of distribution? Because remember, the president is under an obligation to ensure that he distributes these positions in a way that is seen as being fair and in a way that brings everyone together. Because remember, the president is actually a symbol of national unity. Part of his work is to ensure that the appointments that are being made, they're not skewed in tribally in favor of one tribe or one community or a section of the community against others. Of course, these are only 11. We'll be seeing more next week. I think one of the ways Ruto has decided he'll be dealing with these protesters is just take it slow, Give it to them in batches, to just try and slow them down. So we'll see what that looks like. We're going to get some music, and then when we come back, I'm going to be just checking out some of the reactions online from people once his cabinet came out. What have people actually been saying? And Damaris is here saying, yani these politicians wanameza bila kutafuna. That gluttony is on another scale. And she says, when done with the cabinet, could you touch on the ID renewal issue? Is it constitutional? Does this mean that they can start telling us to renew our children's birth certificates as well? All right, we're going to be talking about that. Of course, not in today's show, but thank you for that, Damaris. And of course, remember, if you're listening, you'd like to ask a question, you'd like to give your feedback, you can do that on @Power Radio and @James K. WaNjeri on the socials. But also, if you'd like to put your comment online, we have a live YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you might as well just go and put that there. Let's get some music, and then when we come back, we see what did people online, what did people on Twitter actually say about the cabinet once the positions were read out. Let's go.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
What are some of the reactions online? Edwin Dande said, random thoughts having digested the cabinet nominees, it does not inspire confidence. President Ruto appears very confused and also held hostage somewhere. Why appoint half the cabinet unless it's a chess move? Why not appoint the other half? Just call Raila to submit his names and make a call. Why reappoint people you just dismissed recently? And finally, the president is not committed to the bold pro-governance change that we seek. The process does not inspire confidence at all. I've also seen a tweet from Gitobu Imanyara who says that the contempt that President Ruto has for Kenyans is beyond description. This first batch of his lean, broad-based cabinet is most unqualified for the task ahead. Parliament should reject all of them. Thank God the Gen Zs have already spoken on our behalf. All right. There's a guy called Amakanji Thomas who says, thank you, President Ruto, for seeing it fit to retain the first Maasai woman cabinet secretary, Honorable Soipan Tuya, because she has done a lot in that docket. Kenya is better environmentally with her. Okay. Professor Alfred Omenya put out a tweet with a photo that says, all our pork is 100% halal. TL Elder Mobili Magodi, who is responsible for the deplatforming of politicians in our churches, he says, the only intention Ruto has is to loot this country to its demise. That is the only reason he is president. And for him to loot properly, he has to have the right people in his cabinet. That is the reality on the ground. All right? Let's see. Mbiti Mondi, Dr. Mbiti Mondi says, Kithure Kindiki, who killed innocent kids instead of killing bandits, is back in cabinet. We need a total shutdown of this government. Ruto hates us that much. Kakaruto says, there's no way on earth we are accepting Kindiki and Duale back on the cabinet. They don't listen. All right? Very, very interesting thoughts coming in there. Boni Manyala said, some cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries are not familiar with their work. Gideon Kithaka, I think this guy is usually very pro-government. I see he says, he's referring to something that had happened in the past. All right. It appears when you actually look online, it appears many people are not very happy with some of these changes that have been suggested. And there's also been a lot of lobbying on social media. You people, you actually think Ruto reads your tweets when you're trying to campaign for someone to get a job? Because I have seen this tweet. Wacha nipe huyu ndugu yako hiyo kazi. Eh? If the guy will not listen to you and you're telling him to not kill us, you think he's going to read your tweets? Anyway. Someone else says, of course, from the 11 of President William Ruto's cabinet nominations, Jana, 6 were from Murima and only 1 Kale. Out of a total of 22, only another 11 are remaining. How many of the remaining 11 do you think could be Kales? You see why ODM is loudly silent? That was from Kenyan Ones. Okay. Someone says, Tupatane Tuesday, my people. It looks like Tuesday is not ending anytime soon. Then someone says, the forthcoming demonstration against President William Ruto's reappointment of some cabinet secretaries is expected to be more vehement than the previous one. Kenyans are becoming increasingly wary of Ruto's deceitful behavior. Guys, this is our country and we love it and we're going to be here forever and ever. We're going to die here. But first we must live and live well. What are your thoughts on the cabinet so far? And What would you like to see in what comes after? I know there's been, I think you remember yesterday, Kalonzo Musyoka said that their side of Azimio will not be fronting anyone for the cabinet positions. Of course, it looks like the Raila camp ODM will actually be getting some people into the cabinet. So there has been another handshake. And Raila is a man of handshakes. He had a handshake with Baba Moi in the year 2000. He had a handshake with Kibaki in 2008. He had a handshake with Uhuru. And now there's a handshake with Ruto. So there's been a lot of negative reactions by Kenyans on that. And of course, the other argument is that, if there's a way to bring people together and it will resolve the issues, that has been the argument, the counter argument that has been made. But you will find that, I think, when you listen to a lot of the people who are on the streets protesting, what they're actually saying is, we're not looking for individuals. This is not a Raila thing. It's not an Uhuru thing, a Ruto thing. We actually just want better governance. We want to be governed better. Because this week, the Auditor General has actually raised a lot of issues with some of the things that have been happening in the ministries, where, for instance, she said the government cannot account for 1.1 trillion that was borrowed between 2010 and 2021. Okay? Yet, yes, the money was borrowed, but to say this is where the money went and this is what it did, guys, that's 1.1 trillion Kenya shillings within a period of 11 years. Okay? Now, the National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF, 9 billion cannot be accounted for. Okay? Jomo Kenyatta International Airport built a roof that is leaking. It was 175 million shillings. National Youth Service cannot account for over 1 billion shillings. The Ministry of Health paid 766 million in salaries outside the official payroll. Now, NSSF has lost 67 billion shillings through fake payment claims. Okay? Then the Kenyan oil market has charged customers an extra 5.4 billion shillings in irregular delay charges between April 2021 and June 2022. Then we also learned the same NHIF that lost 9 billion, they also lost 368 million due to typing errors. Fertilizer that was donated by Russia to Kenya disappeared somewhere in the deep sea. Ile ilitoka Russia ilitoka ikiwa yote, yenye ilifika Kenya ilitoka wamegawa. So where was that? And she also says Kenya's correct debt position cannot be told because of inconsistencies in the records that have been kept by the National Treasury. There is a serious issue and a serious challenge that the government actually needs to address, and that is that a lot of money is being lost. And I don't even think, because when you say lost, for instance, if you lose something, it means you don't know where it is. But the unfortunate bit is that for government, the money is actually not being lost. There's budgeted corruption. There are people who know in that budget that is coming to my ministry, I will get X amount. And you have people who've become billionaires. They've never set up a business anywhere. They've never set up an industry. So how exactly are you getting there? And those are some of the challenges that people are actually really, really mad about. And we cannot continue like this. It has to end. It has to end. It has to stop. Because this country has enough resources for every single person. We have enough resources to have education to be free. We have enough resources for hospitals to work and people to get proper health care. We have enough resources as a country to ensure that any person who calls themselves a Kenyan and who is within the borders of this country can access a good quality of life. But unfortunately, those in power, it seems like there's a concerted effort. It's like they come together and they agree how they're going to eat money together. And then what happens? We're told there is not enough money to do the things we want to do, so we're going to tax you more. That is the issue. And unless the president can actually deal with that, and that's a question of governance, then I think he's going to have a very, very unhappy time in office, because people are not going to stop demanding and agitating for better. We're almost coming to the end of this show, so let's get some music, and then when we come back, we can wrap it up. Let's go.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
46 on Monday, but have a lovely weekend. Mazei Baridi, I don't know what's happening. What's happening, man? This is not the July we know. It shouldn't be this cold. But please watch out, be safe. Please share your location with your people that are close to you. We've just seen an era of abductions. But remember, the one thing we must never, ever do is to remain silent. We should never, ever allow the government or anyone to silence us, because the day you become silent, that is the day your life begins to end. So we will never be silent. We will speak up about things that matter. We will speak our truth. We will defend our motherland, and we will never stop. Have a lovely weekend. God bless you all. Tuko pamoja.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.